Welcome to the Rock Interview Series with host Thomas S. Orwatt Jr.
Welcome to episode number 55 of the Rock Interview Series. I'm Thomas Orwatt Jr. It is July 15th, 2022, and for this feature I have drummer Gene Barnett and vocalist Jason McMaster from the band Dirty Looks as my guests. Dirty Looks was formed in 1984 and based out of Erie, Pennsylvania. In 1987, they were signed to Atlantic Records and released two incredible releases, Cool from the Wire in 1988 and Turn of the Screw in 1989. Shortly after that, they were dropped from Atlantic Records, but band leader Henrik Ostergaard continued with various lineups until his death in January of 2011. The current version of Dirty Looks features classic lineup members Gene Barnett on drums, Paul Lidel on guitar, Jack Pyers on bass, along with Jason McMaster from the band Dangerous Toys and Broken Teeth on vocals, and Dave Beeson from Broken Teeth on guitar. Dirty Looks just released an incredible live CD-DVD set entitled Cool from the Speedway Live. What follows is an exclusive interview with Gene Barnett and Jason McMaster in which they discuss the relaunch of Dirty Looks, the past history of both Dirty Looks and Dangerous Toys, and the future plans for Dirty Looks. Hey everyone, welcome to episode number 55 of the Rock Interview Series, and we have a really cool special today. We have Jason McMaster and we have Gene Barnett, and we're going to be talking about the relaunch of the band Dirty Looks. Hey guys, how you doing today? I want to congratulate you on the live record that you recently put out. It was released on June 4th, Cool from the Speedway Live. And it's a CD DVD set, and it's pretty awesome. I mean, a lot of people, really aren't into live records anymore, which I don't know why, but this kind of brings back the spirit of the great live records of the 70s, like the Aerosmith Bootleg Live and the Ted Nugent Double Live Gonzo type of thing. I think it's great.
Those records that you just mentioned are part of a series of, I'll speak for myself, of my childhood. Kiss Alive, even Pat Travers' Go For What You Know, UFO Strangers in the Night, Fog Hat Live. In the digital age, having the piggyback DVD is kind of this bonus thing that lets you kind of sit in the front row kind of thing a little bit more than just listening. But yeah, those are big words you're spitting, and much appreciated.
So Gene, tell me, how did the whole relaunch of Dirty Looks come about?
It started all the way back around 2007 with Henrik, and so we had tried and obstacle after obstacle just forbid the whole entire thing to happen. And then just when it looked like it was going to happen, then Henrik passed. And that kind of, for me, that just ended it. And I just, at that point, was like, how can, I think the only person I was looking at was the singer from Wolfmother. Sounds a lot like Henrik. So at one point, I saw them live once, and that was the first time I've ever seen that band. I was in Australia and I was backstage, and they played Woman, and I heard that and I'm like, hold on, is Henrik not dead? And so I ran out to the side of the stage, and that was my introduction to Wolfmother. And Andrew sounds and plays and kind of even looks like Henrik. So I was really freaked out hard for a really long time. That entire day, I just couldn't stop looking at the guy. And so at that point, I was like, well, he's kind of like, I think when Henrik passed, some of Henrik went into that guy. And so, but at that point, still, I wasn't thinking about, Dirty Looks couldn't do a Dirty Looks anything. And then the only thing that I was thinking was maybe Henrik, he has two sons. So I was thinking maybe if serendipity is at work in the universe, one son would get his voice and the other son would get his guitar playing ability. And then we could do Dirty Looks again with Henrik's two kids. And so that didn't happen. We talked to Henrik's wife, and she's like, nope, kids did not inherit that musical gene. And so So then I just thought it was totally dead. And one day, Paul sent an email, and he's like, "Hey, Jason's interested in doing Dirty Looks," and so that kind of snapped me out of it. And like, oh, well, that's the only guy that could probably pull this off, since like he and Henrik had a relationship. They liked each other. They hung out. They were on stage together. And then so at that point, then it was kind of on again. And we set up a rehearsal down in Austin. And so it was either it was going to be good and it was going to work, or it wasn't going to quite cut it. And I didn't really want to have anything to do with any part of a reboot or a tribute or in anything if it fell in the it's okay category. So as soon as I counted off the first song, and we all kind of, me, Jack, and Paul, it's like we never stopped playing together. It's like those songs, that music is like hardwired into our DNA. And then as soon as the vocals came in, I contained myself, I guess, but inside I was like, holy shit, freaking out, like this is gonna happen, like this is actually, this is not it's okay, good enough for us to do it. It's like, oh fuck yeah, this is on, we can do this now. So that was, so that's how it kind of, long story short, without all of like the getting into the weeds of everything that went along the way from 2007 up until now, that's kind of like the short version.
Yeah. Well, let's give the audience kind of like a background on Dirty Looks. So the band was formed in 1984. Henrik Ostergaard was the main member of the band, the songwriter, guitar player, vocalist. And then you were in the band, and also Paul Lidel was in the band, and Jack Pyers was in the band. They're the bass player. And you guys played on the probably the most popular Dirty Looks records that came out, Cool from the Wire, Turn of the Screw. Both of those records were on Atlantic Records. And on the other end, Jason was in the band called Dangerous Toys, which was a kick-ass band from Austin, Texas. And they were on Columbia Records, and they were going through the same thing. But you guys had, over the years, had a lot of similarities. You had the same producer that produced your first record, Max Norman. So the Dirty Looks record came out first. So what was it like working with Max, Gene?
Max was pretty amazing to work with, just because to me, he was an icon. I'm a drummer, but I love guitarists. And so at that point of my life, Randy Rhoads was everything. So just to be like, when I found out that we were going to work with the guy that produced Randy Rhoads and those two like hugely, massively influential albums, I was 21, so I was freaking out. Like my first, like I've recorded before, but my first real actual like major label, what I dreamed of and practiced for my whole entire life, I was going to work with a guy like that. So I was elated beyond belief. It was, it's one of those just dream come true kind of things for me. It's like, hey, my first album on Atlantic, and Max Norman is producing it. And so he came in and like did his great Max Norman thing, and like we had a spectacular pre-production. He watched the band live. He did what a producer is supposed to do. He came in, he saw us live, he hung out with us, he got the feel for the band. So he made an album for basically off of what the band was. So he didn't come in and put his like, hey, I've got these signature flourishes that I like to do on all of my albums. Like, he didn't do any of that. He just captured the band, made us sound as good as possible, pretty much got the feel for the band, reined it in a little bit, and tightened it up a little bit. And, he did some fine tuning, and he made us, he didn't have a lot of work to do as far as helping the band, because all these songs had been road tested for a number of years. Like you mentioned, Henrik started the band in '84. It's been playing around in Pennsylvania like a year or so before I even jumped in. And so a lot of the songs on Cool were done, dialed, just really well rehearsed. And so he just came in and said, let's do this, and let's tweak this here, and made it just kind of like a cult favorite album that it is by a lot of our contemporaries. And but it was a blast. It was like I was totally high the whole time, being next to and around Max, and he worked closely with me. Like he would wake me up every morning. We'd get down to the studio. I'd tweak on the drums for a couple of hours. We'd get the kit sounding exactly how we wanted to sound. Wake up everybody else and come down and record all day. So it was a blast. It was a spectacular learning experience for me too. And I was just, I was a green little, I wasn't that green, but in the real record music business world of major label type activities, I was this green little sponge, and I just sucked up every single thing that he did. And I listened to every single syllable that came out of his mouth. And I just absorbed the whole entire experience, and it just made me a better everything. It was such a good experience to have.
Yeah, I mean, it's a classic record, and you guys do 10 songs from that on the Cool from the Speedway live release, and they sound friggin' amazing.
Glad to hear it. I'm glad you heard it and liked it and think it sounds cool, and yeah, pretty excited about that, and especially that it's got a DVD along with it too.
Right.
I think that's a lot more fun.
For sure. Jason, now you also worked with Max. Was your decision to work with Max a decision that you made, or was it a record company decision at the time?
Well, there was probably a short list of producers, very short, that I don't even recall who else was on the list, but when we heard Max was on it, there was no deciding, the universe had decided. We were Dirty Looks fans, and we all had the record. We found out that Max had done that record, and that kind of helped us lean that way, as well as the Randy Rhoads factor. A lot of the stuff Gene just said is pretty much ditto, ditto, ditto. The learning experience, how green we were as players. I had some studio experience with previous bands that had been busy, but I hadn't made any more than 1.5, maybe 2 records prior to that, so that's the green, right? So yeah, I was learning the whole time, not just about what Max's hat he was wearing, but like where the holes in the songs might be, where they needed this or that, or just a little bit, the dynamic, how the dynamic of the song can be better just by a little something. For instance, on Teasin' Pleasin' in the breakdown, where everybody's doing a little like bluesy sachet, like a Mae West thing, the burlesque part, I used to call it. There wasn't words there for the first year of the song. The song was barely a year old by the time it was recorded, but any version before live or demo or whatever had no lyrics there. And he's like, tomorrow you're putting some fucking lyrics there. And I'm like, what? I'm like, okay. So I actually forgot, and then I was reminded in the car on the way to the studio. So I'm literally in the back seat of a rented Mustang going, oh shit, what am I going to sing right there? And I made it up on the spot. I think I wrote it on a restaurant napkin that was in the floorboard before I got to the studio, and that's actually what's on there. Not the greatest lyrics I've ever written, but
it works.
Yeah, it worked,
works.
and it was about the vibe anyway, right? And that's kind of the kind of rock music I like anyway. Yeah, so yeah, a lot of what Gene said is exactly the same. It was the Randy Rhoads, the fact that he had also done like Megadeth and It was a lot of stuff. He had Armored Saint, stuff I was a huge fan of. His name was on those records. So I didn't go in thinking, oh man, I'm going to learn a lot. But after day one, I was like, oh shit, I'm going to learn a lot. And I'm really glad that all panned out. And that here we are actually talking about Max, who's kind of a living legend, if you ask me.
Yeah, I want to take a step backwards then from the first record. I remember back then, reading through the rock magazines, about a lot of bands there being like bidding wars for, and both of you were signed to very prestigious record labels, Dirty Looks, Atlantic Records, Dangerous Toys, Columbia Records. Were there any other labels? I mean, was it a bidding war for you guys? We'll start with Gene first.
I wouldn't call it a bidding war. I remember we did a few showcases, and there was a lot of jackasses from a lot of different labels that came out to the show, and it would have been nice if there was a bidding war, because that's always a good thing, like extra money to waste on things you probably really don't need. And I guess that's a good thing. But the best thing about all the labels that came out to showcase us, or to watch us showcase, that we showcased for, we immediately got to see who we absolutely did not want to be our A&R person. And so we kind of lucked into having Frankie LaRocca come out from Atlantic and hang out with us. It's kind of, it all falls down to who you think, or who you connect with better. He came out, he hung out, he talked to us. He's a drummer. He talked to me as a musician, and he loved the band. And he wasn't like a guy that says, I want to sign you to Chrysalis Records, and this is what I'm going to do with you guys. I'm going to shine you up, and you're going to wear this crap, and you're going to do that to your hair, and blah, blah, blah. And Frankie was just he was a rock and roll drummer, and he was a great guy, and he was really supportive. And so there was no question whatsoever that we were going to go with Frankie and be on Atlantic. I mean, I even think if one of the other labels that were there said, hey, we'll give you $1 million if you go with us, I really don't think we would have done that. I think we would have stuck with the person that we knew was kind of like the guy that we needed to be with. He was like just the right guy from all the people that we were looking at, all the people that were schmoozing us and just filling. You could spot bullshit. I've got a really good bullshit meter, and I spent a lot of time at those showcases going, I'm not talking to that guy. I don't want to be associated with these people. I like this guy. He's cool. He's been to a couple of shows. He's our guy. Don, let's go with him. And so, yeah, I think that's better. I think it worked out better than a bidding war.
Jason, how about you?
You could use the term bidding war. There were about 6, maybe 7 showcases. The best part about it is that we didn't have to go to New York or LA or Chicago. We didn't have to find our way. We just played at our local joint that we were big fish in a little pond. So it was our same crowd every time. It was the same show every time. There wasn't this oh, this is uncomfortable, playing in, whatever, under a tent or whatever. It was the same show that everyone saw. Sometimes the whining and dining that they take you out after the show or prior or the next morning for breakfast or whatever. So it's funny. Some of the it'd be different label, same restaurant, different label, same show, same venue. And that was in a point in all of our lives, all 5 of us at the time, where we didn't know where our next meal was coming from. So we were just happy to eat on, not knowing that it eventually would be our dime, So, which correlates with what a lot of what Gene was saying too. You know, decisions are going to be made that you had absolutely nothing to do, and those include thousands and thousands of dollars for crap that you don't need, that wouldn't, that you wouldn't want if they showed you the budget for something. Why do we need this? Itemized list later on you find at your manager's office or whatever. We spent this much money on this.
You got an itemized list?
That yeah. If we had to recoup it, it was water under the bridge at that point. So it's just like, it's part of the learning. You know, you find your kung fu, and you work with that kung fu. Yeah, bidding war maybe loose terminology, but I want to say minimum of 6 different labels, and they were all the majors. You know, the management, we didn't have, you know, there was a guy who, Tim Heine was our manager, and he was brand new to us. We barely knew the guy, but he said all the right things. He managed a lot of the people that we were already familiar with or fans of. You know, he had worked with Rat and Y&T and Ron Keel, and you know what I mean, that kind of stuff. And he was out in LA, and he already knew a bunch of people from all of the labels that he was setting up showcases for. So that it seemed to be, but the deal with him was like, if I don't, literally in black and white, if I don't get you a major deal in 90 days, you tear this piece of paper up and we say sayonara. And it didn't take long, you know, for him to make that happen, which was a totally offense. Like, man, what do you guys think? This is pretty cool of this guy to go to bat for us like a motherfucker, and then say, no, you know, no ties after that. It's all good. So he made it happen, and he owned our ass. So that's kind of where it went. And you know, I probably didn't really have, the band didn't really, I know I didn't have any final say in what label we ended up on. But I have faith that they chose, you know, it would have been CBS Records at the time, because Sony the mergers hadn't happened, right? It was about a year later. So the original pressing of that first Toys record is actually on CBS with the old red circled label with the yellow writing, Columbia, CBS, like old Aerosmith records and shit. So yeah. And then it was Sony
Still,
after, but
later?
Say again?
Is he your manager still all these years later?
No. You know, when your popularity wanes and there's not really any money left over in the bank, and you're not incurring any flux of cash, you know, he remains a friend, but he's not. He was a great manager. But anyway, that's kind of how that panned out.
Yeah. And what about touring like right after the first record? I know with Dirty Looks, with me being based in Buffalo, New York, and the band being based out of Erie, PA, you know, we heard buzz about Dirty Looks before the first record even came out, because Dirty Looks used to play in Buffalo, you know, quite often, much more than, you know, other places in the US. So who did Dirty Looks go out on tour right after the record with?
Well, we didn't. But there was such a good buzz on Dirty Looks that they had Skid Row open up for us.
Wow.
That was kind of fun. Yeah, we played Buffalo a lot because actually we had a guitarist from Buffalo, a guy named Chris Bench, was the guitar player that was in the band when I joined the band. And but yeah, unfortunately, we did our own headlining tours. And so like the exciting point was Skid Row was a fun band to do shows with, because I got to hang out with those guys and tear it up with them for a little bit. And then, but that was like the first 3 shows of that tour. And then we were off on our own, you know, no major festivals, no big multi-Atlantic band packages out on tour. It's just, you know, us slugging it out there. And we did like the best, as far as like opening for people, the coolest thing was we got to do some shows with Kiss And the coolest ones for me were we got the 2 dates at the Ritz in New York, like crammed a great big Kiss show into little old Ritz Theater in New York to go back to their humble beginnings in New York City. And so that was pretty spectacular. That was awesome because at the beginning when Jason mentioned Kiss Alive, that was the record for me that just blew my brains out. Because that I played before that, but when I saw that album, that was when I fully just got connected into, I'm not doing anything else but learning these songs from this album on the drum kit I got and the guitar and amp I got on my 11th Christmas. That was my life for about a solid year. I learned every note on that Kiss Alive album.
It was a good summer. It was a good summer for you. It was a good summer for you.
Yeah, I mean, I learned every ghost note on that thing. It's like I can and probably can play it just like Dirty Look stuff, easy for memory, not thinking in my sleep almost. But yeah, playing at the Ritz with those 2 dates with Kiss, that was a wholly iconic moment of there's Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley and I'm talking to him and I'm just freaking out. And so that was pretty awesome. But unfortunately we never did a lot of tours with other bands, and I think that hurt us. And our first manager was Rob Joyce, who got us hooked up with Atlantic Records. And he was a great manager. He did everything a manager was supposed to do, kind of sounds similar to Jason's guy. And he got assigned to Atlantic, and he also managed Malice. Remember those guys? Yeah. And so, we should have toured with them. We should have toured with anybody. We should have toured a whole lot more. And but it was like, yeah, that's your tour, and come back in, record another album. And then we got a different management company, and who also managed AC/DC. So we thought we were on top of the world, and here, the band that gets compared to AC/DC all the time, now we're managed by the same people who manage AC/DC. So stuff's just going to blow up, open up for us, and everything's going to be spectacular. We're going to go on AC/DC tours. And none of that happened. Our touring for that was the same exact thing as Cool from the Wire. It's like we went out on our own, we toured, we did great, people loved us, shows were awesome, but no big festivals, we're watching all these other bands get on all these cool festivals and do all these cool things, and I'm like, hey, awesome management company, why are you just letting us idle and sit here and not working us to death? It's like I didn't practice all my life to sit and wait for the next album to record. I want to play, I want to tour for 20,000 years. And but it's like record, tour, and a lot of people want to know why Dirty Looks didn't get to where they think Dirty Looks should have gotten, and it's all down to management. They just dropped the ball and they didn't make us do the work that we wanted to do.
Wow, that's really interesting. Heartbreaking to hear that too.
Sorry to steer off the road a little bit with that.
No, that was good stuff. Now, Jason, on the other hand, I know the first time the Dangerous Toys at least played in Buffalo, you guys headlined a club, but you guys played a lot of gigs opening for bands in arenas, and of course the Operation Rock and Roll tour, which was with Judas Priest and Motorhead and Alice Cooper and Metal Church. I mean, that was a great tour. Well, at least, in retrospect, at the time, I know it kind of struggled attendance-wise, but it was 1991 and things were definitely changing in the music business at that time.
Yeah, to be honest, it's not far from what Gene said, other than some of the accolades you just mentioned. When the first record came out, of course, we were on a Z-Rock tour, which was kind of a deal made on the golf course. Z-Rock was this syndicated satellite network where for certain hours of the day, on the dial, this station turned into a Z-Rock station, and those were affiliates, and then some were full on Z-Rock 24/7. And Concrete Marketing was involved, and all of these different people were involved to try to sell records. And MTV was part of the whole game, and you had to have a video, and you had to have a booking agent, and you had to stay as busy as you could, like Gene was emoting there. And it's just important, just as important to stay out on the road on your own as it is to try to take crap money to open for someone who's they can't keep their record in stock. And we were lucky enough to be handpicked by a couple of those bands. The Cult, saw our video on. They were in England where they were living and saw our video, and they were like, "Hey, these guys would be cool," kind of a thing. And we heard that firsthand from the guys in the band. It's like, whoa, that's pretty cool that you have that power to be able to do that. But the pay, you got to think about it, it's all sort of this fantastical smoke and mirrors when you see bands got a video and wow, they're touring with the Cult and they must be making millions of dollars and they're rock star. It's the opposite of that. You're spending all of your money to be on that bus following these big guys around, and you get home with nothing. You're being paid fairly minuscule show pay, and usually you're making more off your merchandise sales than anything else. And that kind of works still to this day when you kind of think about it. When you go DIY, your merch sales can be as equal, if you do it right, to what it is your show pay is, because out the top of your show pay you have all of these expenses that fans don't think about what's going on with that. Well, the big dogs out on the road, it's the same budget. You're having to budget everything. So but the Toys did get to play, for a while there. To be clear, it was a lot like Gene's Dirty Looks, Cool from the Wire, and Turn of the Screw experiences, where we played a couple shows with Warrant. One of them was at the Ritz in New York. We played a couple of shows with Kix and Extreme, and we would, while we were sort of like a week home, right, couple days home, we would get a call to go open for sometimes some really cool, like, up and comers. Like we did this, I remember we did this one show with Zodiac, Mind Warp, and The Love Reaction in San Antonio, and that was really cool because like those guys were cool and weird. An English band, and they just looked like these like satanic biker hippie dudes playing like dirty rock and roll, and it was cool to experience that. I think Zodiac actually wrote an Alice Cooper song. I think he wrote Teenage Frankenstein for Alice. So meeting those kinds of bands and doing one-offs with those kind of was cool. Even the one-offs that we did with different people that I mentioned before. But we did a tour supporting. The first thing that we did was kind of real. It was Tora, Dangerous Toys, and LA Guns, because they were doing really well, and so we were stoked to be able to be working the cleanup for that. And there's a Dirty Look story that comes to mind. Is like when we started that tour in Austin, Dirty Looks was in Austin the same night that we started the LA Guns tour, and so in many interviews up to this one, the story goes, Jack and Paul were at the Toys LA Guns show October 11th, 89, and I'm on my way to go see them, and I open the door and Paul and Jack are standing there, and it was my first meeting of those guys, and I'm like, what? I'm on my way to go see you guys. So kind of interesting. That began the connection. Dirty Looks. Back up a little bit. The first time we heard Dirty Looks, Dangerous Toys were doing our pre-show warm-ups, and there's a little clock radio, and the radio station 99.5 KISS, Joe Anthony was the DJ. I think if you like real rock and roll, you're gonna like this. This is Dirty Looks, Oh Ruby, and our minds were blown, and blah 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 blah, and all we could talk about was Dirty Looks, and then we get picked up, and Max Norman, he did Dirty Looks, so, and then we start a tour, and there's Paul and Jack, and it keeps going, and sorry again, I steered off the road just like Gene did. So
that's fine, because we ultimately want to steer to the connection of where the both bands come together, and you guys have the relaunch of the band. But before we do that, I just want to talk about the second record. A lot of people refer to it as a sophomore jinx, and in the case of both bands, Dangerous Toys and Dirty Looks, I don't necessarily agree with that. I think both second records were strong, but neither of them sold as well as your debut records, and a lot of that probably had to do with the timing also, because like I said, the music, it wasn't yet grunge, but it was kind of like getting there. I know, as being a manager at a record store at the time, kind of noticed bands like Jane's Addiction and bands like that popping up. And although I don't consider neither of your bands to be say glam metal, I mean, it was more straight rock and roll. You guys kind of got lumped in that area, so I think that may have had something to do with that. Yeah,
it definitely did, and I'll speak for myself, but I always lumped the Toys in with shit like Dirty Looks, and even like stuff that might have been a little bit sludgier, like Circus of Power, and then something that might have been a little bit more Southern boogie, like Junkyard and bands like that.
Yeah.
As well as, I always thought Dirty Looks sounded a little bit like Accept, like the Balls to the Wall record or something. Just crunchy, dirty rock and roll that had these tinges of metal. And, even the Toys had people describing the Toys as like, they're a little bit more metal than Warrant or, Faster Pussycat. Or you see what or even LA Guns, and that's why I like LA Guns, because they had a little bit more metal in them, but they were playing up to the Sunset Strip because of it. That was where they were from. That was their cohorts. It's where their band sort of connected and grew up too. So that's by default. But here we are coming from Texas, Dirty Looks coming from the East Coast, which always seemed a little bit more like over there, a little bit meaner of a style, stylistically. Like Twisted Sister is not a glam rock band in my book. When you listen to the songs, even though they're writing like major scale melodies and hooks and stuff, they sound like they're gonna kick your ass. And that was always important to me if you're going to play that style of rock. If you're going to try to put that in a box, it should be, driving fast and throwing bottles and raising hell, at least 90% of the time, coming out of the speakers, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So there was a lot of that. So the second efforts that you brought up, I'll speak personally again. Turn of the Screw is a bad motherfucker. There's some songs on there that are, well, they're the ones that are in our set now.
You got 7 of them, I think, on the record. Yeah.
I love those songs. The L.A. Anna and Slamming to the Big Beat and the title track. Those are fucking great hard rock songs. Come on, Frenchie. It's like, what? They're sick. And I'll say it, I'll take the opportunity. It's an honor to be able to sing those fucking songs. Because I'm a huge fan. And yeah, go ahead.
The sophomore jinx thing. So
yeah,
I don't really, so influence-wise, I'll just say that I couldn't stand the comparisons. I didn't like being lumped in I didn't like the category hair metal. That really bothered me. I mean, my first MTV interview, I almost got into it with Adam because I knew he was going to compare us to AC/DC, and if you're going to be compared to somebody, then let it be AC/DC. You know, like the comparisons that came later were, you know, far more unsettling to me than being compared to AC/DC, obviously. But like I envisioned the Dirty Looks sound, the band that kind of inspired me in that type of rock and roll was Nazareth. They were my first concert. They opened for Aerosmith on the Rocks tour, and they blew me away. The vocals and the guitar and just the power that band had, and the mirrored pickguard on the flying V bouncing off the roof of the arena, that like changed my everything. And so when I got into Dirty Looks, I was flashing back to, we could kind of be a new Nazareth if we play this right. And that's what I wanted the band to be. I didn't like any of the, like, then hair metal came and like, oh, they're just like all these bands that have hair up to there and they wear makeup. It's like, no, fuck that. We don't do any of that goofy shit. We are a rock band. Like, leave us alone. Do not categorize us. Do not try to mash us in this square that our circle is not going to fit in. And but if you listen to the albums, you can hear a serious just trajectory of growth in Dirty Looks. Like, you play the first EP that Henrik put out in California, and then play In Your Face, the one that they put out, Henrik and Jack put out, and then play I Want More, which is the first one that we recorded after I joined the band, and then play Cool from the Wire, and then Turn the Screw. Each time you hopefully will be dropping the needle, but each time you drop the needle on any of those, and I know some are hard to get, but you can hear serious musical writing, band gelling, and you can hear the chemistry forming in that band. And once you get to Turn the Screw, like, I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's no Cool from the Wire. It's like, I just tell them to piss off, because it totally is the next chapter of the evolution of Dirty Looks. The songs that we recorded and wrote for that album, they are not Cool from the Wire songs. This band is now kind of like a force to be reckoned with. They're roadworthy, they're road tested, they're road tough. We didn't screw around. There was no bullshit with this band. We worked really hard, and we always got better. Our playing got better, our writing got better, our shows got better. And I think Turn the Screw is, if you just back to back, and I'm hard pressed. I don't think you can sit there and say, Cool from the Wire is better, because Henrik got better as a songwriter. He got better as a singer. I love the Accept reference, because Henrik did sound like Udo. And when I was in high school, they were like in the top 5 of my favorite bands. I loved Accept. You know, like Fast as a Shark made me a better drumming. Fast as a Shark was the double bass song, as was Kiss Alive to me being a better drummer, or actually the genesis formation of me becoming a drummer. So Turn the Screw, I mean, management, it's all back to management. That album had such good songs, and we were such a better live band, and they just, it's pure ball dropping, you know. They just dropped the ball in the band. And so Atlantic was like, okay, end your tour, come back in, do another album. And, you know, but that, at that point, there was this horrible mashup of label, management, and band. It was the upside down trifecta. It's like the trifecta you don't want to have in your life, and it's just it killed the band. But Turn of the Screw, like, I think that album is, as far as Dirty Looks goes, that's my favorite one. But obviously, because it's the last one I did, outside of like the handful of songs or half the songs on Bootlegs, which were great songs too.
Yeah, I love Bootlegs.
Yeah, Atlantic Records, did they drop you after that, or did you guys want to leave the band or leave the label?
We did not want to leave the label. So they, through those circumstances of the previously mentioned upside down trifecta, Atlantic at some point kind of had no choice but to be like, okay, we're trying, but when you've got, bad management over here and then a band that kind of doesn't want to do certain things, they were just like, yeah, we're done. So it was a pretty sad day, because I used to live in the Atlantic Records New York City offices. I mean, when we got signed to Atlantic Records, that was the coolest thing that ever happened to me. I became friends with all the people. I hung out with them. I lived with them. Slept in their offices. Like, hey, what can I do for you? So they'd be like, you want to sign posters? So I would use any excuse to go to the Atlantic Records offices and hang out with all of my friends, whether popping in to see our A&R guy, Frankie, or going to the radio people or the marketing people. And I just lived to hang out with those people. And so I went in one day, and one of the head of Atlantic Medical, Atlantic Metal, came up and just gave me a big hug, and he said, hey man, I'm really sorry. I tried to do everything I could, but it's like, I'm gonna hate to see you go and gonna miss you guys. And it was really sad. It was very disappointing. It probably shouldn't have happened. There was so much left in that band, but management. I could go on for hours to tell you really what went down, but I will just say management is the cause of everything that went down to tank the band.
Yeah. Well, just briefly, was there any way of changing management or getting a new management to save that, deal, and then to save the band?
You would think that would be a pretty easy thing to do, but that just didn't happen, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay. And then you quit the band in 1990,
right? So we did the Turn of the Screw tour. Luckily, I survived that tour. That was a really difficult tour to get through, and so we were working. I guess Dirty Looks had, we had a recording studio house type situation in Pennsylvania, and the really annoying things in Dirty Looks to me that would always happen was I'd be sitting around off tour, not recording, and just enjoying home life, and the phone would ring, and it would either be Jack or Paul saying, hey man, it's really cool playing with you, good luck. And I'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, well, I'm not in the band anymore. Like, why are you not in the band anymore? It's like, I don't know, Henrik just called. And so I would get these calls periodically from Jack and Paul. And then so at a certain point, that I don't have 100% with accuracy to like tell you the whole timeline of like after the tour ended and then we find ourselves recording, because I was still suffering some Turn of the Screw fog in my brain. But Henrik and I went into the studio to work on, we didn't know, the next album, whatever and wherever that was going to be. And our sessions were not going well. We just we were so out of sync that nothing sounded good. And we tried and we tried and we tried, and there was a couple of funny things that happened, funny not funny, and then it ultimately came to the conclusion of, well, we can't write together anymore. We can't come up with anything together. And it's like, so we kind of like closed up shop, went to the house, sat on the porch, you know, had some drinks, and just came to the conclusion that, yeah, I got to go. There's no point in staying in a band where you can't write and where you just don't line up musically or philosophically or any way, shape, or form at the point. So like, at that point, I knew, like, you know, it's kind of like one of those things. I could see that I was in the band at its zenith, and I just, if it was my ship, I'd go down with the ship. But it kind of at that point, it wasn't my ship. So I just, I got off at a nice port, and I went home and I joined Lillian Axe, and that's another goofy story.
We're gonna have to do a whole other interview just on that, I think.
You should.
Yeah,
just a heads up. I have another interview in about 10 or 15 minutes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So
just a heads up.
yeah, no problem. So we'll make it real quick. And like I said, I wanna kind of conclude this all, like mesh the both bands together and do a present day.
First off, there's a lot of stuff that Gene said that I didn't know. So I'm like learning shit right now.
Yeah,
You know, I love it to hear Uncle Gene tell the stories from his point of view. So
I don't know if I want to be placed in the uncle category.
well, I'm just trying to creep you out a little bit.
We'll say
right.
brother Gene works.
There you go.
All right. So Jason, if you want to briefly tell us then for Dangerous Toys, like before we started the interview, you mentioned how you left CBS Records at the time, and I thought that was really interesting. Did you want to just tell our viewers why Dangerous Toys left the big record label?
It was Sony at the time.
It was Sony.
The mergers happened soon after we joined the roster, but it was here you go. So we put out the second record. We do the big Operation Rock and Roll tour. We come home. It's the end of 91, right? It's like the fall of 91. And we're writing and we're writing and we're writing. Literally wrote 80 or 100 songs, which I have demos of everywhere, behind me, in front of me, whatever. Anyway, excuse me. And it pretty much came the time where to look around the room and say, this is some of the best material that we're writing as fans, as artists, as musicians, lyrically, musically, we're playing better, we're, you know, and along the way, ended up losing, you know, members. Well, at least one of the guitar players that played on Hellacious Acres, Danny Aaron, but who also got along really well with Henrik Ostergaard. So go figure. Beers and smokes, you're my friend. You know, they both singing guitar players. You know, but anyway, so here we are with all these songs that we felt were super strong. Our management felt really good about them as well, and was probably thinking, well, we're going to make a record. It may not be with Columbia, but we're going to make a record somehow, some way, because of the material. And that's there's proof of that with the next record that came out in '94, which is Pissed. But yeah, we asked to be dropped. You know, it's like we've been sending songs for, you know, months and months and months and months and months, and we're running out of, you know, I think we did a tour without a record between Hellacious and Pissed, because there's like 2.5 years or something happening there. I think we did a 200-date tour on our own, self-tour, managed everything in a bus, and with Kevin Fowler, who's a huge country star, regional country star down here now. Great songwriter. He's doing well. With him on guitar. And by the time, we were just like, yeah, we want off the label so we can make our own decisions. And we signed with an indie label, and we put out Pissed and recorded it in California, and that was with Paul Lidel. And I guess that was right when he had finished up 5 Easy Pieces. He was done with that part of that tour and that record, and his obligation had been fulfilled. But when we had lost Danny Aaron before Kevin Fowler was in the band, the first person we thought of was Paul, but he was in the middle of, and we knew this when we called him, but there was no audition. It was just like, Scott was like, call Paul, and I called Paul, and he's like, "Aye, that sounds amazing, fuck," but I'm in the middle of this, and I'm like, we understand. So we waited, but one day Paul called and was like, "Okay, so I'm ready," and we had to clean house. Sorry, Kevin, we had to clean house to make room for Paul, and then Paul just came and learned the songs we had picked out for Pissed. We went to California, made the record. And then the bass player quit. It's like never fucking ending.
So then Jason became a bass player.
Well, that was after Pissed. We had Michael Hannon from Salty Dog on bass for about 200 shows, and then we the last record, the artist formerly known as Dangerous Toys came. But that's a whole other story, and it's kind of, we're getting a little long-winded. But Paul is on that record, and so, me and Paul have been working together for so many years. So when this whole thing came up about, Dirty Looks and how can I help you guys make this happen? I would have been totally butthurt if they wouldn't have asked me to be the guy. And I'm so happy that there's all of these little places in time throughout a period of like 30 fucking years or more, that and the respect that I have for for Henrik and Jack, Gene, and Paul, because of Cool from the Screw to put it together, right? Cool from the Wire and Turn of the Screw. I feel like this is something that I said it earlier, I'm completely blown away. And David Beeson, we have to mention him. And David's been a songwriting partner and co-Dirty Looks fan club president because I'm a huge fan, and so is David. And we write songs together in our band Broken Teeth, but we're just trying to rip off Dirty Looks.
Yeah.
Wow.
So let me ask this question to conclude on, and again, thank you both of you for your time. I really appreciate it. It was a very interesting interview. So Dirty Looks have a few tour dates up ahead. You're going to be playing in Philadelphia on July 29th in the Masquerade festival that's happening there. That's going to be a great festival in Philadelphia. Are there going to be? Do you plan on doing more tour dates? And is there a possibility of a Dirty Looks record, a new studio record?
I'll let Gene take that.
So a few promoters have been reaching out to us, and so we are very open to more dates. There's lots of areas that we would love to play. There's lots of areas that we have huge sentimental love for. I say we as in, like my memories of where Dirty Looks played. Love to do a Texas tour. So, hey, promoters out there or fans of the bands that want to do great private parties. Other bands out there that, festival, and yes, we want to play more. So reach out to us. You can reach out on our Facebook page or our website. we will get back to you. We will entertain all serious offers. People have to know that it's a fairly costly operation to put on a big rock show, even a medium-sized rock show, or a what size rock show we will accept being a part of. So yeah, we definitely want to play. We love playing. Like the whole big test we passed last September. If this whole thing sucked live, it would have ended at 12 o'clock September 19th or 12:01 or whatever. Because if it would have been a subpar performance, I'd have been out. I mean, so there's just no way I would have done this if it was crap. And so like the ordeal to get us to that gig on September 18th was brutal and long, and I have PTSD from it. But as soon as that show kicked off and we were playing the songs, all that crap kind of slid away. So that show was a blast for everybody, and it was the main thing for me is, am I looking at a crowd having a good time? And I was. So that's the only thing I care about. Happy fans make a happy band, and I would love for us to be doing lots of shows in front of lots of happy people that like this music, because it's good stuff. It's people like it, people want to hear it, people seem to have a fun time while we're presenting it. And so I can't wait for more shows, and I welcome any and all offers. And music, we're tiptoeing around that right now. We've got some things going back and forth. It's difficult because we don't live near each other, and we're all working musicians and working whatevers, and people that have obligations, and so it's not easy for us to just come together and just bash out a bunch of riffs and formulate good quality type stuff. So, but it's something that we're actively engaged in working on. We all write, so we're all writing, and hopefully, some songs will come forth that fit the mold. It's that's kind of, I don't know. So it's kind of weird to say we're going to write some Dirty Look songs, but at the same time, where we are with the people that are here, it would not behoove us to not try to do that. I'll let Jason take over from here.
I think that there's a specific sound to Dirty Looks music. I'm going to put Gene on the spot here. I feel like, to use his words, the zenith is these two records that we've been holding in our hands this whole conversation, right? There's a way that Gene plays that these, whatever new material there, that has to be there. That style has to be played. His fill is not just anyone else's drum fill. His kick drum is not just anyone's kick drum. It has to, Paul Lidel's guitar riff goes with Gene's foot. Same with Jack. Whatever Jack is going to do on the bass is complementing. Jack is like the glue between the riff and the drum groove. It has to happen this way, or not at all. My job would be, and not limited to, what would Henrik do? Is this lyric I'm thinking of closer to, and these guys are keeping me in check because I'm kind of the new guy. not trying to like be Henrik, because I'm not. I'm not Henrik. But the, what he did as a writer, where where his shuck and jive and his innuendo lyrically and what he's really talking about with words that are not literal is exactly the kind of lyrics that I love and that I try to write with the rock bands that I write songs for. So I got that, but there's still this one little thing that has to make it sound like Dirty Looks. So if the riff and the groove and the fills and the bass, whatever the bass is doing in between those to make those come together, sounds like something, it makes it easy, it makes it more clear for me to be able to know what lyrics, what melody, what sort of like inflection, what which voice I should use, because Henrik had a lot of different voices, and you think about it, he had like 3 or 4 different voices that he's using as he's traveling through his storytelling. Now it's just ass-kicking rock and roll, but there's a process to that. It has to be this thing, and if that's not happening, the new music won't happen. Like Gene said, we do have a few things that we're looking at that, speaking for myself, sounds like it could have some potential. So we'll leave it at that.
Well, let me just pick up one little bit, like going back to what I said before about if you look at the pathway of the band and the progress of the band going from album to album to album to album up until now, Dirty Looks never really remained a constant. Like, everything didn't sound like Cool from the Wire. There was Turn the Screw was a drastic change from Cool from the Wire. It was way more up tempo. It took a lot more chances. There was different types of music involved. There was like odd time feels. So like from going from then to now, I don't want, like, so a lot of bands or a lot of people, they're like, oh, so you got to write songs that sound like Dirty Looks. It's like, no, not really. We have to, like, Dirty Looks is a progress. So we have 3 legacy members of the band, and we have Jason and David, and there's no way we can make a Dirty Looks song, which is why I kind of said earlier, like, well, Dirty Looks songs, like, I feel weird kind of calling it New Dirty Looks, because there's a little bit of a confliction right there. So like, I don't want to try to create a Dirty Looks song just to have a song sound like Dirty Looks, because that would be fake, and I do not like that. But there are elements of Dirty Looks that I think that we are capable of bringing to something new. I'd really like something to be, obviously it has to rock, it's got to kick ass, because that's the foundation of this band. We were just a full-on, flat-out kick-ass rock band. No bullshit, no frills, no silliness. We didn't tolerate any of that horse shit, and certainly will not tolerate it now. And so I'm hoping for like the next, like from where I left off, I would like the new songs to be like, oh, that's like a reasonable jump from where they were. And with having Jason, that's a bonus, because we don't have Henrik. So we're not going to write songs with the idea of having a producer say, you don't sound Henrik-y enough. And right. Anybody said that around me, I would jam this just like it would come out of their mouth. We're not going to make stuff like that. So I'm hoping that we can naturally come up with some good killer songs that don't have to be compared to, because as soon as you categorize and compare and try to create something to be like something, then you're taking out all the natural that has the ability to come into existence. And I would really like something to, I mean, we planted the seed by getting all of these 5 people together. I would like that seed to germinate into something that it's like, wow, look what this combination of people just sprouted up. And if we're able to do that, then we'll have something good that I really think people will like. Because I think first and foremost, we have to like it. And, you know, if we don't like it, and if we don't think that we can put it out, like, it doesn't sound good enough to us, then, you know, we're not going to let all you people hear it. I just want something that is just, I want something that we can listen to and be like, yeah, that's good. You know, not like, okay, we created a song that we can pull off in a Dirty Looks mode. I want nothing to do with that. Like, from the get-go, like, if the practice in Austin, Texas wasn't good, then we wouldn't be sitting here right now. We wouldn't have even done that show in Sealands Grove, because there's a bar. I mean, you know I see a lot of bands. There's like, they're playing all over the place. They've got one original member, and I don't watch those bands just because there's no chemistry whatsoever with that kind of stuff. And if you don't have chemistry, then you don't have a band. So you're just watching, you know, some leftover thing that you're keeping alive. And so right now there's just a natural goodness to what we're doing. It's not fake. It's not forced. Everybody likes what we're doing. And I hope that we will be able to get together and write some stuff. But like I said, it's kind of difficult, because if we were sitting right here with both having guitars and bouncing riffs off each other, that's a lot easier. It's a lot more fun. It's kind of hard creating in this new Zoom scape of, it's no fun. You know, it's like, I like feeling a guitar kind of like hit me in the gut, whereas guitarists and singers like feeling kick drums, you know, and stuff. And so we're working on it.
It's going to influence you a little bit different than hearing a riff that someone sent to your email box.
Yeah.
But I'm confident that that we can do this. We're all pros. You know, the fact that, you know, that it's not, that I'm not Henrik, and this is, you know, a new sort of like blossoming thing that we're totally into working on. Even with three of the original elements, it's not going to sound like Dirty Looks. It'll have Dirty Looks element, but it won't sound like Dirty Looks. And people need to be prepared for that. And we need to be prepared for that. So I love what Gene is saying right now, because it shows fire. He wants it to be a certain way, and I think that that's important. Just as much as his
one
thing.
Go
ahead. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Finish up, Jason.
No, I was just going to say, as important as just what he does in Dirty Looks songs is to Dirty Looks, is just as valid as what it is we're trying to do with something new. It is 30 years later. We all don't sing and play the same way that we did 30-something years later. So there's that, too. So.
Yeah, I absolutely do not play it. Going back to playing Dirty Looks songs was probably, I know it's going to sound weird, because Dirty Looks songs are relatively simple. Just like Phil Rudd's drum parts of AC/DC are relatively simple. But playing that style is extremely difficult. Like, not everyone can do that well. And my playing evolution has so arced way beyond that. I don't play like that at all anymore. So it was very difficult for me to get back into that person at that time. But the one thing that I wanted to, like, it popped in my head really quick, and that's why I interrupted you, Jason. Sorry about that. But I was going to say, the one thing that I will bring to the writing room is like, maybe I'll print a T-shirt that says, "What would Henrik do?" Because I would like to have. I definitely like, if we can't. I would like to channel his spirit somehow, because if we're going to get together and write some things that from something that he created, because none of us would be here if it weren't for Henrik, and none of us would have the opportunity to continue this band had it not been for Henrik's creation of this band. So I definitely would like, I would go into it moving forward with that definite spirit of, you know, like, well, what would Henrik do, and would Henrik approve of this too? Because while we're not going to have something that is churned out that sounds like, you know, the next Dirty Looks album that came after whatever, I would want something that, you know, his spirit, his wife, his kids, his fans, you know, the last thing I want is a bunch of Dirty Looks fans calling us a bunch of dickheads online, because here we are trying to capitalize on something that they may not feel that we should be. So I feel like if we are honest and true and respectful of what Henrik created, and we create something out of that mindset, I think we'll have something good that you know, can keep what Henrik planted growing, and keep his spirit alive. Because, you know, I mean, that's kind of boils down to, that's very important to me. And so I don't want to piss fans off. I don't want to piss anybody off, and I want something to be good and honest and natural, and if we have to force something, we'll know we're forcing something, and like Jason said, we're pro enough to know that. You know, I'm not going to put out a turd sandwich just to get 50 cents. It's not going to do it.
Yeah. Well, guys, I just want to say thank you so much for the fascinating interview. It was really great hearing these stories and talking to both of you. For all the Dirty Looks fans out there, and I hope that, you know, after hearing Cool from the Speedway live, I hope there's even more Dirty Looks fans. I mean, the band looks like they're going to be back for a while, and hopefully you guys will, like, you know, find that formula and be able to write a new record, a new kick-ass record, like I know that both of you can. So thank you again, and best of luck, and hopefully we'll see you on the road soon.
Thank you,
Thomas. Yeah,
awesome.
Man. Take it easy. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having